The Pardoner's Tale. In the prologue, Chaucer describes the pardoner as a cleric full of flatteries and provocation. By selling pardons, documents officially forgiving the purchaser's sins, and supposedly holy relics, the swindling pardoner earns more in one short day than a poor country parson earns in a month or two. Even while exposing the pardoner's dishonesty, Chaucer praises the pardoner's persuasive skills, how well he read a lesson or told a story. Now, when it is the pardoner's turn to tell a story, he himself explains his methods. All his sermons illustrate the biblical text, radix malorum est cupiditas, love of money is the root of all evil. He finds that preaching against the sin of avarice or greed is the best way to get people to pay him large sums of money for his pardons and relics. After providing this boastful explanation, he then proceeds to tell one of the stories from his sermons. As you read, think of answers to the question, what effect would the pardoner's story have on an audience of poorly educated country folk? The Pardoner's Prologue. My lords, he said, in churches where I preach, I cultivate a haughty kind of speech, and ring it out as roundly as a bell. I've got it all by heart, the tale I tell. I have a text, it always is the same, and always has been since I learnt the game. Old as the hills and fresher than the grass, radix malorum est cupiditas. The pardoner explains how he introduces himself to a congregation, showing official documents and offering relics as cures for the various problems. Next, he explains how he preaches. Then, priest-like in my pulpit, with a frown, I stand when the yokels have sat down. I preach, as you have heard me say before, and tell 100 lying mockeries more. I take great pains in stretching out my neck, to east and west I crane about and peck, just like the pigeon sitting on a barn. My hands and tongue together spin the yarn, and all my antics are a joy to see. The curse of avarice and cupidity is all my sermon, for it frees the pelf, out come the pence, and specifically for myself, for my exclusive purpose is to win, and not at all to castigate their sin. Once dead, what matters how their souls may fare? They can go blackberrying for all I care. Believe me, many a sermon or a devotive exordium issues from an evil motive, some to give pleasure by their flattery and gain promotion through hypocrisy, some out of vanity, some out of hate, or when I dare not otherwise debate. I'll put my discourse into such a shape, my tongue will be a dagger, no escape. From slandering falsehood shall there be, if he has hurt my brethren or me. For though I never mention him by name, the congregation guesses all the same, from certain hints that everybody knows. And so I take revenge upon our foes, and spit my venom forth, while I profess holy and true, or seeming holiness. But let me briefly make my purpose plain. I preach for nothing but for greed and gain, and use the same old text as bold as brass, radix malorum est cupiditas. And thus I preach against my very vice, I make my living out of avarice. And yet, however, guilty of that sin, myself with others I have power to win. Them from it I can bring them to repent. But that is not my principal intent. Covetousness is both the root and stuff of all I preach. That ought to be enough. Well, then, I give examples thick and fast, from bygone times, old stories from the past. A yokel mind loves stories from old, being the kind it can repeat and hold. What? Do you think, as long as I can preach, and get their silver for the things I teach, that I will live in poverty from choice? That's not the counsel of my inner voice. No, let me preach and beg from kirk to kirk, and never do an honest job of work. No, nor make baskets like St. Paul to gain a livelihood. I do not preach in vain. There is no apostle I would counterfeit. I mean to have money, wool and cheese and wheat, though it were given to me by the poorest lad of or poorest village widow, though she had a string of starving children all agape. No, let me drink the liquor of the grape, and keep a jolly wench in every town. But listen, gentlemen, to bring things down to a conclusion, would you like a tale? Now, as I've drunk a draught of corn ripe ale, by God, it stands to reason I can strike on some good story that you all will like. For though I am a wholly vicious man, don't think I can't tell moral tales. I can. Here's one I often preach when out for winning. Now, please be quiet. Here is the beginning.